to Vin and Mike, episode 48. What is up, Mike?
What is up, Vinny? Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. A nice Monday for you there. I know you're really excited to talk with these three great gentlemen we got tonight.
And they're all good sports, I'll tell you. They're all smiling here tonight.
That's right. None of them canceled after we scheduled this earlier last week, and none of them canceled. They're all here to talk about their Packers. I'm excited. We've been talking about this. It's kind of funny. Before we bring everyone in, and just let the audience know, we've been talking about getting these guys on without them even knowing each other for months, and it finally got to the point where the Jets were playing the Packers, and we're like, let's try to get these guys on after the game to talk about the game and see how they feel about their Packers and everything. And we have them all on. Mike, go ahead, introduce every single person, and then after that, I'll just do a quick little intro read for us.
All right. I'll start to the gentleman on my right. I'm loving this beard right now, and I joked around with him before the show. Hibernation, it's not even winter yet. I love it. He's got his little Packer man cave there from the John Codman experience back in the day. Mr. John Codman, welcome back.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
To my bottom left, he is Wisconsin sports through and through. Has met so many players, always knowledgeable, so knowledgeable of sports, and glad he could. This is his third appearance on Vin and Mike, so the trifecta. Mr. Kyle Manske, welcome, number 3.
Happy to be here. I think this is episode number 49. Would this be the Tony Richardson episode?
You're one off. 48.
But we'll make it a special 49 for sure.
Special 49 Tony Richardson episode.
Yes. And then finally, what better way to spend a birthday than being on the Vin and Mike podcast? He wears his Rangers hat in pride, looking very serious. All right, he got a smile down there. Huge Packers fan, huge Rangers fan. They're playing as we speak right now. The birthday boy, Mr. Chris Mangano. Welcome back.
Thank you, guys. Good to be here.
Yeah,
Got for a good show.
Happy to have all these guys on. And like always, Vin and Mike is brought to you by @ViggyBets. Go right now to Twitter, Instagram @ViggyBets, and tell him you're a fan of Vin and Mike, and he'll give you his VIP package for his handicapping, $9.99 a month. I know he does a lot of stuff with hockey. He's happy that hockey is back, so check out all his hockey handicapping when you get a chance. We're also on the Pigskin Podcast Network. We're also out in Kansas City on KKFI, and like always, you can get everything we have at vinandmikepodcast.com. So this is a real fun show. Happy to have everybody here. And I know it was a tough loss yesterday, 27-10 to the Jets. Mike was very ecstatic yesterday. Part of our group chat, I seen how you guys were reacting to the game and all of the things that were very negative that you felt the team are doing this year. And I figure we'll just start right from the top. Mr. John Codman, some of your thoughts on where the Packers are sitting right now here as we enter week 7 already.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, all phases of the game were crash and burn on Sunday, man. That was a pretty sad display, in front of a full crowd at Lambeau. That was just sad. I think that we should be 1-5, to be honest with you. I was at the New England game. I mean, if they hadn't played their best part of the game in overtime, we probably would have lost that one. And I think we're definitely in the rebuild at this point. The offensive line, I don't know what the hell was going on there, but I think it's really going to change the whole season. And I think finally, after years of film study, the rest of the league has figured out what LaFleur is about. And they've found some predictability, and they're doing some things to make adjustments from a coaching perspective, because they've been outcoached. And that's the other thing that really kind of upsets me, is that, it's one thing if your players aren't performing and are failing, but, when you don't give your players a chance to succeed and you don't, coach them up right for the games, I think that's a big problem. And listen, I said this at the beginning. This is my final comment. In the prior episode, I was not a fan of keeping Aaron Rodgers. I wish they traded him. It's time to move on. And I think we're, and Rodgers is already now saying publicly that he's going to retire at the end of the year. And geez, if we'd known that, we never would have signed him. We would have just cut him loose and brought in, this young kid that we have, to get him coached up and see if he can make a run at this. So anyway, those are my thoughts.
I want to follow up with that, with Kyle, just with your comments about Rodgers. When people said, "Oh, Rodgers had an off game," going back to John's comment, do you think that you agree with him that let's get rid of Rodgers, start fresh? What are your thoughts, Kyle?
No, come on. I mean, this is still Aaron Rodgers. This is a Skip Bayless called one of the best throwers of the football of all time. Like, you can't just cut this guy. You need this is week 6, week 7. I overreacted. I posted online, the season's over, the season's done. But when you take time and you step back, you wait. They're 3-3. The Buccaneers are 3-3. The Super Bowl isn't determined as of week 6. If it was, the Vikings would be up there with the Steelers with 6 Super Bowls if the season was determined after 6 weeks. You need games like this. It's tough. I didn't take it very well, but Rodgers needs to learn that I'm not 30. I'm not 26, 27. My game has to adjust. The team has to adjust. I have to rely on 2 running backs. How many times do I hear LaFleur say, we're going to give it to our best player, Aaron Jones? And he only had 2 carries the first half. It's the same crap, different day with Matt LaFleur. But when you have these embarrassing losses, this helps Rodgers realize, okay, I have to make some adjustments. LaFleur saying he's got to make his adjustments. This is the only way you're going to learn, by having embarrassing losses. The past 3 years, John can say this, Chris can say this as Packer fan, we've had a lot of close wins, games that could have gone either way, which has gone in our side. I was at one of those games last year in Arizona where we should have lost, but Rasul Douglas was there at the right place, right time to make that pick. Now you had the opposite, where a lot of these close games or embarrassing games are going against you. And when you have these embarrassing losses, this is how you're going to make adjustments. The thing I worry about Rodgers, and Rodgers has always been this way, is that whenever something happened, he never takes accountability. When he stinks, it's always someone else's fault. In the playoff games, 2019, it said we need a Lambeau game at home. He got a Lambeau game at home. What do we need next? We have fans. Then he had fans. He had cold weather. He stunk against the 49ers. Oh, it's a special team's fault. It's not his fault, trying to throw 3 deep passes to Devontae Adams, which didn't work. I can keep taking off more of the Band-Aids, but 12 has to play better. He's got to take accountability. And by having these embarrassing games, this is what's going to wake him and the team up. It's week 6. Remember, the NFL is a marathon, not a sprint.
All right. Chris?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's about time to start sounding the alarm bells, but I think a lot of what the Packers are doing right now is correctable in a sense. I'm not. I was definitely all for keeping Aaron Rodgers this season, but that being said, he's part of the problem right now. I mean, every offensive play. Matt LaFleur has made his bones in the NFL as an offensive coordinator, sticking to a solid running game. You got a 2-headed monster in A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones. And the offensive line has not had a chance to get any momentum going because Aaron Rodgers has a run-pass option on every single play, and he's checking out of the run. Meanwhile, Aaron Jones is through 4 weeks, he was averaging 8 yards a carry. So, and every time we lose and Aaron Jones gets 10 touches, LaFleur says in his press conference every week, yeah, we got to get him more touches. We got to get him more touches. Well, he's trying, and Aaron Rodgers is checking out of all these of every run play at the line of scrimmage. Whatever he's seeing in the defense, but it's not allowing the offensive line to get any momentum. You got to get these guys out there mauling, get involved in the running game. And then that's going to open up the play action. We don't have the receiving core. We don't have Devontae Adams who can get open anymore at will. We're working with, a couple of rookies, a couple of unseasoned guys. And then, our number one receiver, Alan Lazard, is, he's not a guy who's going to be creating, big time separation, in the post or anywhere. He's going to go up and win balls. He's going to block. He's going to do a lot of gritty things. But, the only way that the passing game is going to be effective is with an efficient running game and opening up the play action. It's just not, Aaron Rodgers hasn't allowed that to happen, especially in close games. Right? There's no reason to be throwing the ball 25 yards downfield on every other play. I think from the offensive line's perspective, through the last 2 weeks, they've just completely gotten their asses kicked. Elgton Jenkins, former pro, has looked, obviously, it's going to take him some time to come back from an ACL, but he's looked bad. And, I think honestly, the answer is, as far as shaking up the offensive line, move him to right guard and put Yosh Nijman at right tackle. I think that could change a lot of things because Nijman has played really well, in backing up Bakhtiari over these last couple, season and a half, really. So I think there's some moves coming, but as from a scheme standpoint, you just got to let the running game get going, let the offensive line get some momentum, and that'll open up the play action. I think less of the problem is on offense because out of camp we should have anticipated this, right? We knew the offense was going to be a slow burn, especially with the way that the receiving core was looking. A lot of young guys. We knew it was going to take some time to get going. I think the bigger concern for me right now is the defense. Coming in preseason, everybody anticipated this to be a top 5 defense. I think it's twofold. The scheme has been horrible. Yesterday was the first time that they really came out and challenged guys in man. Joe Barry's been sitting back in this soft zone, just letting everything come underneath. And we've been getting gashed. The first half looked really good from the defensive perspective. They only gave up 14 points, 17 points. Had the goal line stand there at the end. Gave up obviously the block punt for the touchdown. But the defense against the run has been poor. I mean, you look at the defensive line was supposed to be a strength for the Packers this year, and you got guys like Kenny Clark just getting blown off the ball 3 yards on every play. So you're not going to win football games like that, especially in close games when, you're getting gashed in a 1-score game for, 25, 30 yards, every run. So, it's got to be better. I think the guys know it. It has to be better. So we'll see, the schedule kind of lightens up a little bit, but, it's we still have a couple of really tough games on the schedule. I don't know. Minnesota's kind of catching their stride a little bit. It's going to be tough to win the division this year right now, sitting where we are. I kind of anticipated we'd be 3-3 at this point, but I didn't anticipate the losses coming the way that they did, or the wins coming the way that they did, for that matter. I think the Bears are really the only team that we ever show up for. Everything else has to be gutted out. So, you look at the New England game, had a great opportunity to, put the garden hose down their throats, and we let it, somebody that nobody has ever heard of, come in and effectively, move the ball against our defense. So, hats off to Zappy, but, got the win there, thankfully, but has not turned out that way for the last 2 weeks. So, got a lot of work to do in the classroom this week and on the field, and hopefully get these guys prepared for another tough game this week. Well, hopefully shouldn't be a tough game, but it's not really panned out that way. So see what we could do against Washington.
Yeah. A few things that I noticed, away from being a Packers fan and just looking at the NFL in general, was 22 of the 32 teams are 500 or below. So being 3-3 is not terrible right now in today's NFL as we enter week 7. I think some of this is overly highlighted for us being in New York because the last 2 games were the Giants and the Jets. So seeing, what happened and hearing about it constantly and everybody talking about it, adds a little fuel to the fire. Then I think the other thing that really stood out to me, and you guys mentioned a lot of this, was 179 yards rushing for the Jets and 60 yards rushing for the Packers. And I think that's the big problem because I looked at all the other numbers for the game, time of possession, turnovers, sacks. They're not crazy. Even the Packers had better time of possession and all that other stuff. So just looking from a pure number standpoint, that's the big number. And then the special teams still didn't really play, well, right? And it was an issue last year. They made the big change, bringing Versace in and trying to really, amp it up. But I think that hurt them as well. So for me, that's what I look at when I looked at, the game as overall. But as far as where the season is, I lean towards Kyle, taking, here we are on Monday. We're off of that Sunday, energy and everything, take a little step back. That it's only week 6 is just over. We're going into 7. Like Chris said, you're playing Washington. It's looks like Heineke's going to play that game. Wentz needs surgery, which probably actually helps Washington, right, Kyle? We talk about Wentz all the time. Hashtag bum.
Well, look at Tampa Bay. They're 3-3, tied for first place, and they're playing like shit. So there's plenty of time in the season.
Well, Brady's spending his time at home, when the team is doing their walkthrough in Pittsburgh because he's not allowed to leave Tampa until Sundays now. I don't know. There's a lot bigger problem in Tampa than just the play there, right? The quarterback is not fully vested, and that could be the problem for the Packers as well, right? Like, how vested is Aaron Rodgers at this point in his career, where he's wanted a number 1 receiver all the time, right? He threatened retirement over the one draft. He's, he got this big extension, threatening retirement, but he still doesn't have a number 1 receiver. I thought it was insane that the only first-round draft pick he's ever thrown a touchdown pass to is Mercedes Lewis. That's one of the craziest stats I've ever read for a guy that's thrown that many touchdowns. It's just insane. So you think about all that stuff, is how vested is Aaron Rodgers right now in what Matt LaFleur wants to do with this team? And Chris makes a good point of him checking in and out of running plays and stuff like that. So you think about all that stuff, Mike, what did you see? You watched, probably the whole game.
Yeah. On my side of it, I wasn't at first because the game was very close in the first half. But I just saw the Packers are really out of sync. As I said before the last program, that I felt their defense really had to improve, but the Jets were just getting to him. Quinn Williams was just a beast, right? And I just felt the game was just from first quarter to fourth quarter, the Jets had control. I truly believe that, even though the score didn't really dignify that in the first half. But what I was really impressed with on the Jets side was the resilience. And what I mean by that is, in previous Jets teams, how hard it's been for me. When the Packers did come within 7, I believe it was 17-7, you wonder how this Jet team was going to really respond, because I was nervous myself. And I said, the Packers are going to make a run. I see you guys shaking your head. You probably thought the same thing with Jets teams that you've seen. But that was not the case. And what was happening was the plays. It wasn't the conservative plays. The Jets were making some good plays. Zach Wilson didn't even have that good of a game. If you look at his stats, it was the running game. And this was something that was non-existent for the Jets. Breece Hall has been unbelievable. And just the different kind of the reverse play to Berrios, the blocked punt, the blocked field goal. The Jets really did it all yesterday. So I know everyone – the thing that I'm not liking is a lot of people are like, oh, the Packers were awful and this and that, and they were not there. But let's commend the Jets. Let's celebrate this victory, because this team has just, I don't think anyone would believe right now the Jets are 4-2 and the Giants are 5-1. And I mean, myself, I said into the game in our pick show, I said I thought the game was going to be close and plus 7.5, and I actually sprinkled on the money line as I said on the last show. But I didn't feel like the Jets would dominate like this, and I think I just saw from remember when the first one of the first plays that we thought it was an interception, but it wasn't. It got reversed. I thought the Packers after that would be like, okay, this play is reversed. They're going to start getting in control and do something, but that was not the case. The passing game was just off, and again, was it really the Jets receivers like Sauce Gardner? I think that was part of it. Was Rodgers really off? But again, the summary is, no matter who your team is right now, we're only in week 6. There's a lot that could change. There's a lot of variance in the NFL. As Vinny said, you have so many 500 teams, and anything's possible if you make adjustments, right? You look at the Jets, they didn't even have Zach Wilson in the first couple of games. They had Joe Flacco, right? So they had to make adjustments, and the Packers could easily make adjustments too. The stat that I was amazed, as a testament to you guys, is this was the first time since LaFleur's been coached that the Packers lost back-to-back games. That's freaking incredible. That's a testament to you and coaching. And to me, the Packers are right there. They just, you know what? In the NFL, you lose some games, but it's how good teams really know how to bounce back, and they should take care of business next week.
Yeah,
that's it. So
yeah, you make a good point, Mike. I mean, honestly, like you look at the Packers' offense was certainly out of sync, but you got to attribute a lot of that to how the Jets played on defense. I mean, Aaron Rodgers getting hit left and right, took some big shots. His thumb was already sore going into the game. Whether that was, Aaron Rodgers putting on an act or if it was legit. But even the only touchdown drive that the Packers had really was only kept alive by a couple penalties from the Jets. There's a 3rd and 8 that got, we got a first down for on a defensive holding in the secondary that kept the drive alive. And there was 1 or 2 other penalties too that on a 3rd down that kept the drive alive. So, the Packers offense really couldn't get anything going. And when it was 17-10, I had a glimmer of hope. But and then the Jets running game just went to work. So at that point, I had no faith in the Packers offense to really get the ball moving. They couldn't do anything all day. Sauce Gardner played great in the secondary. He was all over the place making plays. He's legit. And the Jets defensive line was dominant. I
want to say just one more thing. Then I want to give it to Mr. Codman to say a couple words. So the other thing that I've been really impressed with the Jets was lack of turnovers and stupid penalties, which has killed them in the past. And the last few games, they've been really disciplined about that. And penalties lose games and turnovers lose games. They didn't have 1 turnover. They played very disciplined football. I was really impressed. Mr. Codman, do you think the Jets are for real?
Yeah,
do I think the Jets are for real? I mean, your boy didn't have that great a game. But he's a young quarterback. I mean, he's young, he's mobile, he's enthusiastic. He's not afraid to take a hit. He's a tough young guy. I think you have a great opportunity to go some places. And it's like you said, for younger teams, it's really about discipline. It's really about focused on the game plan and not getting the stupid penalties and the turnovers. That's just a killer. That's just the worst. And LaFleur talks about this all the time, about, when you lose that turnover battle and you win a game, you just got lucky. That's what that's about. I mean, the numbers are really against you. And from my perspective, this is really going to be a test of Matt LaFleur as a coach, because he's going to have to turn this situation around. He had a great 3 seasons. It's kind of like the honeymoon's over, and now this guy's really got to make it happen. And he's got to make it with an older quarterback who kind of insists on taking ownership of things, maybe not in the best interest of the team. He may think that's the best call at the time. Like you knew Rodgers had the bad thumb. I don't know why they didn't have a game plan where they didn't do some short crossing routes. I mean, I rewatched the game. Rodgers can make the short passes if they set up the plays for a quick release, but he just loves to drop back and look for the explosive plays. But he can't throw the ball accurately far anymore. He cannot do that. You know, he was really lucky on that one drive where Lazard caught that ball on the sidelines. That was insane. That was a crazy. I mean, it was a perfect ball, but you know, you're not going to do that every time on every play. And he needs to show a lot more commitment to the run. You know, the run is only going to help him. It's going to protect him. It's going to give him more time. It'll give the linemen a chance to be more stout and get a better start when the rush comes. But I'm not sure Rodgers is there mentally. I'm just not sure about that.
You can still adjust. Look at Brady. Brady's 45 years old, and he's doing well because when he realized, hey, I'm getting older, I got to dink and dunk my way through a strong drive, get a 6-7 minute drive, get these short little slant passes. Now, since he has Mike Evans and other weapons, then you can be a little more creative. But I think of Brady's last couple of years with the Patriots, he really had no weapons to throw to. So you got to be a little more creative. My issue is 12 only cares about 12, and 12 wants to do those crazy plays. I don't think he's going to adjust and being able to adjust his game plan for what the team is instead of him thinking about himself. Just knowing how 12 has always been his whole career, and that the Wisconsin media is so easy and is so easy on him. No one ever calls him out on how he plays or on how the team plays or on how Matt LaFleur coaches his game, because this is the third week in a row where we see no second half adjustment. And there's no one I grew up in it. No one from the Wisconsin media criticizes Matt LaFleur. They talk about, 39 wins in 3 seasons. Okay, but that was the past. What about today? You say the same BS response that, we got to make adjustments. We got to hand off the ball. Okay, then how come Aaron Jones doesn't get as many carries?
Well, I listen, I don't know if you watched the press conference, but you know, the press is getting a little more. The last press conference with Rodgers and with LaFleur, you know, they're going to keep pounding away on the questions, and they're only going to take the party line for so long. And I have to tell you, you know, if Rodgers crashes and burns for 3 games and we go down the shitter for the season, which is altogether possible, I hope they can make a turnaround. I hope Rodgers can stay within the offense and do the things that LaFleur asked him to do, because that's the way they're going to win. That's the way they're going to win those games. Rodgers has to step back and not try and make an explosive play. He needs to take the Tom Brady strategy where you don't have to throw a home run to win on every play. You know, a single, a double, the smaller plays. I mean, they didn't run one screen pass until the end of the game. Okay, with all the rush that the Jets had, you'd think they'd call a screen. In fact, they haven't called a screen pass most of the year. It's like, if your line's getting killed, help them out. Give them a play so you take that rush away from them and you get your lineman down the field with a guy like Jones. Geez, that's 20, 35 yards. And that's an explosive play, and it's a good pass for Rodgers. So, you know, I just see some strategic challenges here coming up with the people that they have and how they're going to change this narrative and how they're going to change the game plan.
When they were actually successful, though, is I think of the Giants game and then the one touchdown against the Jets. What worked, and then it got me upset because they went away from that, is when they were throwing 5-10 yard slants, and more importantly, getting Aaron Jones involved. What got me so mad this game is when they were doing like screen passes or even trying to set up plays, is they were giving the ball to A.J. Dillon. I'm like, that's not what he's known for. You know, if you're going to throw this ball, if you're going to throw this pass and then have 2 or 3 O-line, give that to Aaron Jones, because what makes him so great is once you give him the ball and he gets past the line of scrimmage in the initial tackle, then he can explode for additional 5-10 yards. And I'm just like, LaFleur, you know what's going to work. I'm screaming at their work. What annoys me, I feel like Matt LaFleur is just like a cheerleader. He's just telling everyone at Lambeau to scream or else he has this game call plan. He's just like, or else he's like, shh. I'm like, stop being a cheerleader. Call the game.
And Aaron Rodgers has more say in the offense than LaFleur does right now. And that's a problem. I mean, just going back to what we were talking about earlier, I'm looking at the stats right now. Aaron Rodgers, 26 for 41. He had 41 attempts. A.J. Dillon, 10 carries. Aaron Jones, 9 carries. Total of 60 yards. That's just not good enough. You need to get the ball in Aaron Jones' hands more than 9 times. Even in the passing game, he only had 3 receivers, only targeted 3 times. So it's just simply not good enough. And, what's frustrating, we touched on it earlier, but like Matt LaFleur, every post-game presser, after a loss, we need to get the ball in Aaron Jones' hands more often. Well, then do it. I mean, he's your biggest playmaker on offense. Get him the ball. Even in the Giants game, right? I mean, when that came down, we had 2 plays to get 2 yards and drop back both times. Run the ball. What are we doing? Run the ball. We were averaging 6.5, 7 yards a carry against the Giants. And hats off to the Giants. They played great last week as well down the stretch, but hand the ball off. I mean, you got 2 plays to get 2 yards and keep that game alive. And you drop back both times, and that obviously didn't work out. So, it's been frustrating to watch. I mean, everyone's saying it today. Nobody feels bad for Packers fans, and I certainly understand that. But, listen, hats off to the Jets, hats off to the Giants, 2 really solid wins. Packers got a lot to figure out, and, hopefully they can get it right this week against Washington. But that's all I'll say.
The worst are Bears fans. I talk about the Packers like the season over, and then like either family that's Bears fans or friends that are Bears fans, like, oh, cry me a river. Oh, what do you think it's like now? Be like being a Bears fan. And it's the whole like little brother syndrome that I hate, that you care more about the Packers losing than your team successful because your owners are a bunch of bozos and the whole front office is a bunch of bozos.
Vinny, you have to get your friend Anthony and Kyle to have a cage match.
Because
that'd be good.
Because now you're trying to move to the suburbs to get a dome at community because, there's no parking at Soldier Field. We can't park or go to games because of that stupid
Come on, Kyle. You don't like the fans that go to the game and dress like Mike Ditka? Come on, dude.
Oh, stop.
Yeah, it's 15 yards for taunting on that one.
The unsportsmanlike conduct. That's worse than roughing the passing.
Oh, real quickly about that, guys, off topic for a second. Vinny and I were talking. I want to get your perspectives. Last show, we're talking about roughing the passer. Actually, you want to do the commercial quick, and then we'll get. Let's do that, and then we'll get back.
So let's do the commercial. When we come back, let's talk some football topics, talk some Packers history as well, because I think we beat up on your team enough, these first 6 games of the season. But let's think about this, guys. Mason Crosby's lining up for an onside kick. The chances of regaining possession are slim. The stakes are high, and the tension is higher. Your pulse racing. He kicks, and you watch as the ball lands. What happened? Well, make every play feel this exciting with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, and their unbeatable offers. Right now, new customers can make any $5 NFL bet and get $200 in free bets if your team wins. Check this out. In addition to the usual bets, everyone can boost their winnings with DraftKings stepped up same-game parlays. I actually got plus 100 tonight for Justin Herbert to throw 1 touchdown, so I jumped on that right away. To make things even sweeter, you can throw down on stepped up same-game parlays once per game day all season long. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code TPPN to get $200 in free bets if your team wins. Just place a $5 bet on any football game only at DraftKings Sportsbook using code TPPN. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. All right.
So no one does promos like you.
Hey, listen, they tell me to, create my own little scenario, and
I think
There we
everybody
go.
should hire you to do their promos.
Hey, listen, voiceovers are a good business. I heard.
I think you're fantastic. All right, getting back to the topic.
When you were saying about kick, I was getting PTSD from Brandon Bostic offside kick. That was maybe one of the most depressing moments as a Packer fan. That whole game, it was like 10 things had to go wrong, and that game, all 10 things went wrong. And I was at home watching it with my family. I remember the onside kick, the fake field goal for a touchdown. Just 10 things had to go wrong, and they all.
Was that the Richard Rodgers game?
No, you're thinking that's a Lions game in 2015, Richard Rodgers. But Seattle, there's a replacement refs in 2012. I broke my remote in college watching that. 2014, I remember watching the NFC Championship game with my family, and I just sat in complete quiet, so depressed. And I had to go back to college, and my mom's like, do you want me to drive you back to college? I'm like, sure. So like the hour drive, I was just so quiet and so depressed for probably good like 2 or 3 days. My family was so worried about it.
All right, let's jump to some happy stuff now. Go ahead, Mike. What was your question for the crew?
So, Vinny and I on a previous episode were talking about these roughing the passer penalties and how it's getting out of control of the refs and the league, just throwing that flag. And the one with Brady a week back with, I think, Grady Jarrett, when you see that, I'm not seeing helmet to helmet. I'm not seeing below the waist. I'm not seeing a horse collar. I mean, it is getting out of hand. And there's no doubt in my mind, because of the Tua situation, that the NFL is just calling these roughing the passer penalties, but it's really screwing with teams, and that's just my opinion, that we got to get better. Actually, Stephen A. Smith said something hilarious. He's like, we might as well put flags on the quarterback and play flag football, because that's what it's coming to. Want to get your thoughts. We'll start at the bottom with Chris this time. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just say this, right? I mean, the NFL is the richest sports league in the world, and we can't afford to have full-time referees. It just doesn't make any sense to me. That is hands down where the money needs to be spent, because now, game in and game out, you have referees that are deciding the outcomes of games. It's been going on for years now. Pay these guys, give them benefits, make these refs full time, and I think you'll see a lot of these issues go away. And that being said, right, there's still no excuse for it, because the refs that are making these calls are veteran, seasoned refs that have been in this league for years and years and years, guys that have, been on crews that have done Super Bowls, championship games, and there's just no excuse for it. I mean, it's gotten soft. I understand, and I'm all for protecting quarterbacks. Obviously, those are the guys that are putting people in the seats and making the games exciting. But it can't be at the expense of the integrity of the game, and leaving big decisions in the hands of the referees to decide outcomes. It needs to clean up, plain and simple.
Yeah, Mr. Manske.
One, the NFL is called the No Fun League for a reason.
Kyle is full of joy tonight.
The NFL is the No Fun League.
I like having Kyle on when the Packers lose.
Oh, let's get him on every time.
And to be going to John would know, if you want it that bad, be going back to the 70s and 80s when Bart Starr wasn't a player, he was a head coach.
Oh, well, that was that you can talk about that later.
Lindy Infante, Forrest Gregg. I love it. If you ever go to the Packer Hall of Fame, you get the Vince Lombardi years, and you get to go. I've been in Lombardi's replica office. That's been there since like the 80s. I remember my dad having me in his lap in the replica Vince Lombardi office. And then it's basically from 68 to 91, 92, they just say the years of maximum effort. And they barely go over it. They have instant replay in 89 when the Packers beat the Bears. And then it goes straight into 92 when Mike Holmgren takes over. And then you have Brett Favre in, which, again, Brett Favre, that dope saying, make sure no one will catch this, writing this in text message. What a dingus. But that's another subject about Favre. But yeah, so did I think it was roughing the passer? No. But the NFL is going to protect its most valuable asset, which is, it's not just Brady, it's not just Rodgers, not just Josh Allen or Mahomes. The NFL is a QB league. You got to protect the star players because of the Tua situation. Then you don't want some team that now, like Miami has a good roster. I really like their head coach. But if the QB is gone, I'm not watching. It was the same thing. When Rodgers went down 5 years ago with a broken collarbone, people just did not care about watching. And I remember ticket prices plummeting. I bought tickets right before those 5 years when we played the Ravens, and we ended up losing that game 20 to nothing. Brent Hundley scrambling 20 yards back only to throw a pick or incomplete. That's just miserable. That's not fun. But the NFL has to protect the QB. So even if that is whatever, roughing the passer, they have to do whatever to keep people watching. People watch this game because of the quarterback and the plays they make. Of course, everyone else adds a piece to the puzzle, but what do you remember 25, 30 years? You remember the starting QB for the Super Bowl team. Do you remember maybe the center, Frank Winters, of the Super Bowl 31 team? If you're a diehard fan, yes. Or
Frankie Bag of Donuts.
Frankie Bag of Donuts, that is correct. Or the starting safety, Eugene Robinson from Hartford, Connecticut, as a great Chris Berman, TJ would say, Tom Jackson. Most normal fans aren't going to remember that. You're going to remember the QB. So you have to protect its prize asset. And, of course, this league is flawed. Every league is flawed. But that's all I got to say. But, yes, I'd love to be on for more losses.
Before we jump to John, I just want to say I had this conversation the other day with my brother. We were talking about recognizing NFL players from our own teams, and we were going down the list of guys that would you be able to recognize them if you saw them out, right? And we were talking about like top kind, players, like superstar kind of players. And we're like, no, I wouldn't recognize them. Like you recognize the quarterbacks, and then you start running down like Mike. Would you recognize Michael Carter if you saw him in Florham Park, right? Maybe Breece Hall? No, right?
No, it's a funny point.
Like you think about like the superstar players on your team. Like you go with like baseball and basketball. The 12th man on the bench. You run into him, you're like, yeah, I know that guy. But football players, you don't know anyone but like the quarterbacks. And the farther you are removed as a quote unquote diehard fan, even less. Like Tampa Bay, like Tom Brady and maybe Mike Evans.
I would say back in the day, like Brady and Gronkowski when he was playing, I could recognize those two.
Right, that's about it. But it's kind of crazy when you think about it. Like 1,600 guys in the NFL, and you can recognize barely 100 of them.
It would be funny, Vinny, when we went to Mikey Square a couple of weeks ago, and we're just sitting there, in our section. If there were Jet players, like in the other, we would have no idea.
The Jet and Giant players.
That's right. The
only guy I would have recognized is Saquon Barkley. I don't think I would have recognized Daniel Jones at this point.
Think of like teams that have won the Super Bowl. How many of them have you known did not win because of their quarterback? Like just like whatever history, like Peyton Manning 2015 with the Broncos was awful, but had a great team. But even that team only won one Super Bowl. Even going back to the Baltimore Ravens in 2000. Loaded defense, loaded roster. Who was their QB? Buccaneers legend Trent Dilfer. And Dilfer could only get one Super Bowl. If you want to stay competitive and be a good team, it all depends on the QB. Because eventually defensive players get old, schemes get caught. You have to make adjustments. It's a QB league. That's how the league makes their money.
Yeah, that's a really good point with the roughing. John, some of your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, that was a legitimate stack and a strip. I mean, at a certain point, you can only protect these guys without, just, basically like I said, flag football. I agree with Chris that, why they haven't committed to full-time referees, because that would create consistency across all the referee teams. They could create standards. They could do a lot of different things that would create a lot more continuity around how the calls are made. If you really want to get into it, you could do a lot more with video review in terms of referee calls as well. There are a lot of calls that get made on the field that aren't eligible for video review. So if you really want to get into the weeds of looking at the calls that the referees are making, that's the way to do it. But I think that at a certain point, you have to decide. And Kyle makes a great point. It's a quarterback-led league. Yeah. You got to protect those guys because people are want to watch somebody throw the ball 50 yards in the air for a touchdown. And that's those explosive plays are the things that make the NFL so exciting. So definitely agree with that. And Chris had, I agree with all the things Chris said for sure.
One more that was comical that was even worse than that roughing the penalty was that Chris Jones one in KC. He even said this. He's like, I'm a 300-pound person. I came, I tackled him from the back. The ball actually came loose. It was a fumble, and then they called the roughing the passer. It was comical at that point. It's comical. It really is.
I think it was the Rams, I believe, petitioned the league to make roughing the passer calls reviewable. And I'm honestly not for making penalties reviewable, but there are two calls on the field that can alter, really the course of really any game. And that's roughing the passer and pass interference, just because of the nature of how they're called, the, really judgmental aspect of it in real time from a referee to make that call, and with pass interference calls, sometimes they could be 30, 40-yard calls. So to have some level, I'm not saying make all reviewable, but, maybe factor it into a challenge. If you want to review a roughing the passer or a pass interference call only, I think those are really maybe would be the only ones that would be in scope. Have a team use a challenge on it. Maybe that's a way to kind of circumvent some of these bad calls that are altering games, because at that point then you could get the guys sitting in the booth, New York, wherever it is, looking at this thing from 15 different angles, say, we should pick that flag up. But I don't know. I'm not all for making the game slower, but I'm definitely for making the game better. And that it needs to get cleaned up.
I know when they did the pass interference for that one season after the Saints game with the Vikings, and then they did it the next year. I think they only overturned one pass interference call the following season out of all. I forget how many challenges there were. So that's why they got rid of it. It was still too subjective for them to even make the calls from the booth to say they were going to overturn them or whichever way they were going to go. So, and again, at the same point, I think they also didn't overturn them because they didn't want to put the referees out there as well. I think it became a point where it's all right, this is a rule and we have to look at it from a challenge perspective, but we're not going to overturn anything. We don't care, you guys want to try this or not. But I do think it's easy for roughing the passer to tell, like the Grady Jarrett and the Chris Jones, you can see that nobody was hitting the helmet. Nobody was rough. Nobody was hit. They were legitimate tackle sacks, plays that happened. If anything, there was a penalty more on Brady for kicking Grady Jarrett after the sack than anything. And then the fumble, ultimately, Kansas City still won that game. But that kind of play could have cost them the game, because at the time it was 17-10, and then the Raiders ended up kicking the field goal towards the end of the half, making it 20-10, which didn't ultimately hurt them. But that 3-point swing, which could have been, who knows how it would have went the other way, ultimately could have cost them the game. So I think, I think there's more things you can challenge. And like you said, if you give them 2 challenges anyway, right? You get them wrong, you lose the challenge. If you get it right, you keep your challenge, similar to like how baseball does it now. And it doesn't really slow down the game that much. I mean, certain games are just slow because of the way they're going, but ultimately these games are over 3 hours in, and that's all you expect is a 3-hour game. So I'm okay with that when I look at it.
It's kind of like how, like, in every play there's always offensive defensive holding. You can kind of see some grabbing, you see whether grabbing of the shirt or just grabbing on like by the collar. But like it happens every single play, every single down. But it's all depends on, I think, if it's visible and sometimes luck and timing. Like if you're in front of a referee and you're grabbing, they're going to call that. It all depends on positioning more inside the huddle, where it might be as easier to get away with it. You're not going to get away, but by challenging that or checking, it's just going to make the game slower. It happens every time. It's most of the time when flags are called, unless if it's blatant, or if it's a starred player, as we say as Packer fans. Rodgers have gotten a lot of favorable pass interference calls. It's a crapshoot.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing. When it's a star player, you see penalties thrown more when it's a star guy. Like you'll see now. You're starting to see it with Micah Parsons a little bit, right? And he can get to the quarterback at will. So as soon as they throw a right arm out there and grab a jersey a little bit, the instant flag for like holding. I noticed some of that last night watching the Eagles Cowboys game, because he's a guy that's becoming recognizable around the league. And like we said, there's like 100 guys that are recognizable in the entire NFL. So as soon as you're one of those guys, it's like, okay, we got to put you in a different category. And like Chris said, it's the richest league, and you want the star players to continue to shine. And that's the way the NFL is rolling out things. But we're rolling on some time here, so I want to get into some Packer fandom. We were talking a little bit before the show, and I know a lot of you guys' stories, but I just want to hear like one of your most special moments as a Packer fan. So we'll start with Kyle.
That's a long list.
Just one, Kyle. Just one.
If I can, I'll give you 2.
That's fair.
The first time I ever went to Lambeau, I believe the day was, I will give you was January 27th, 1997. That was the day after the Packers won Super Bowl 31. I was 5 years old at the time. It was a great day. I got out of school early. I didn't have to go to kindergarten that day. It was great.
Kindergarten's rough.
Kindergarten, yeah, I know. Life was rough. Then counting, finger painting, rough life.
That damn kid ate your crayons again.
My mom, dad, and my mom's side of the family, we were all in an RV. It was like a little little motorhome, whatever, RV, driving up from Milwaukee to Green Bay. It was so cold that day. I don't know if John or Chris, you remember that day or watching after the game, but it was, I want to say it was single or negative digit. But I remember about that day, my 2 favorite movies as a kid was watching on the way up, driving on VHS, The Flintstones with John Goodman. And then one of my favorite movies of all time, Tommy Boy, with the great Chris Farley and David Spade.
Great
so
stuff.
Watching those movies, because it's a 2-hour ride. So we watched that probably, I think I watched The Flintstones up and then Tommy Boy on the way back down. So single digits, I was wearing layers. I looked like Randy from A Christmas Story, like, I can't put my arms down. But when you see something on TV, I always tell people, one of my friends just went to the Jets-Packer game, who's from Long Island. When you go to Lambeau Field, I don't care who it is, there is no place like it. So even when I was 5 years old and I went to the rally and it was single digits and so cold, everything you see on TV and you see it in person, my eyes got so big. Like, this is where Lambeau is. This is where my favorite player of all time, Reggie White, played. This is where Brett Favre is. And just seeing all these Packer fans at that moment, waited 29 seasons, to get to the Super Bowl and just to win it. At 5 years old, soaking it all in. And I didn't care that it was freezing, it was so cold, and that the Packers, missed their chartered flight. So they were supposed to be in the afternoon, but they didn't get there till nighttime. I was just happy, even though Favre wasn't there, because Favre was doing a taping at Letterman. I didn't care. I got to see my favorite player of all time, Reggie White, speak. I remember Desmond Howard spoke, and Desmond Howard had the year of his life saying, "Oh, man, I hope the Packers pay me." And they weren't going to pay him because he had one fluky year. And mark my opinion, if Desmond Howard didn't win the MVP that year and Favre did, Favre would have won in 96. The Packers would have won the Super Bowl 32 the next year. Because the reason why we lost that Super Bowl is because Favre wanted MVP so badly. He kept forcing the ball when they could have just handed off to Desmond Howard. But that's another subject. So Desmond Howard spoke. Bills legend Don Beebe spoke. Reggie spoke. So all these guys spoke, and I soaked it in. And that's like the first time that I really loved. Of course, I've watched every single game since 1995, but being there, being cold, I didn't care they were late. I didn't care that I was freezing and that I got to watch two of my favorite movies of all time. Stuff like that. When you see it in person, that's what makes you fall in love with the team. And there's no other sports team like it. Now, I've gone to more games. I've seen more games as I've gotten older and, being able to have more funds. And I got a cool experience last year. I got to catch Rasul Douglas's Lambeau leap against the Ram. That was really cool. But I think everything when you fall in love with something comes when you were a kid. And that experience, my dad taking me out of school, just to see a rally. And you've probably seen rallies like, "Hey, we couldn't have done it without you." And they say, "Yeah, thanks for being an awesome fan." Getting a hat. And I still have the receipt and I still have the tag on the Packers Super Bowl 31 cap when we bought it at Lambeau Field. It's still sitting in my room collecting dust, and I'm never going to wear it. But that special memory of going to the Return to the Titletown pep rally in 97 when I was 5 years old, that's how I fell in love with the team. And I've watched every game since the 95 season, and I know I'll continue watching every single game and I'll make it out of my schedule. Wherever they're playing, wherever I am, I know I'm going to watch every single day until I'm not here anymore.
Good stuff, Kyle. Thanks. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, well, I didn't get to Lambeau until I was an adult, an older person, but just sort of, I think a game that I was just thinking about, I've probably been to 6 games at Lambeau, and, it's sort of this cathedral in the midst of this, residential area. They're all, 1-story homes and stuff. It's just kind of a miraculous place, just kind of where it is. But the game that I remember was the Wisconsin marching band was there for the game. And what was really cool was not only they were playing before, they were playing after, they were playing at timeout segments at different parts of the stadium. Different sections were in different parts playing different stuff. They did Roll Out the Barrel, which was insane.
Yep.
They had a halftime show that was killer, all the marching band stuff. And then at the end of the game, they stayed and they're all Lambeau leaping and it was just this free form jazz horn thing. It was just, there was so much joy to just see these college musicians, because I have a lot of appreciation for horn players because I'm a jazz guy, but marching bands are so cool and they were great. And that's just great just to see them
just that the Packer organization would let them be there on the field and do all that stuff. That's something just so uniquely Wisconsin, uniquely Green Bay. You just don't see that kind of stuff. And that's why it's so cool that you have a small market that has a big NFL team like this. There are just things that happen there that you don't see in any other stadium in any place in the NFL.
Yeah, profit sharing, free agency, salary cap. They have all the good things that every league should have. And really, it strengthens the small markets, and it's why the NFL is what it is today. Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, two quick ones for me. As far as game goes, I've been lucky enough to have been going out to Green Bay since I was about 5 or 6 years old. One game that really stands out, probably one of the best days that I've had up there. 2010 divisional round. We were playing Seattle. Probably one of the greatest weather days you could ever ask for in Green Bay, Wisconsin. It was about 35 degrees, snowflakes the size of your fist coming down. We drove out there for the game through a snowstorm. We got out there, and just really, the people out there were really what make it so special. We tailgated with a couple of guys, and they had made their own moonshine in their bathtub, so we were passing that around. We broke out the bottle of Sambuca from New Jersey, introduced that, drinking out of the bottle. And then we just went into the game, and a guy from my high school by the name of Ryan Grant ran all over the Seattle defense that day. It was just a great day. And I remember driving home on the way back, listening to the Giants-Cowboys game, thinking, holy shit, the Giants are going to beat the Cowboys right now, and we're going to walk into the Super Bowl. And we all know how that one ended up. But it was a great day. Another one back in 2014. It was a Saturday night. We were watching college football at the Stadium View the night before the game. And as we were leaving, I saw an older gentleman sitting there with what appeared to be his kids. And I was looking at him, and I knew he was somebody, and I just kept looking at him. He was not in very good health. He had, a breathing tube through his neck, couldn't speak. But it turns out it was Fuzzy Thurston. I walked over to his table and sat down with him and his kids, got to chat with his kids, and took a picture with him, shook his hand on the way out, walked into his car, and he passed away the next morning. So it was a pretty special moment to, thinking back. Obviously sad day the next day, but just, two very memorable moments that I've had in Green Bay, and I'm sure many more to come. It's Kyle, John, as you guys know, it's just a very special place. And Mike and Vin, we'll get you guys out there for a game very soon, because it's worth the ride.
Who did you see them play, Chris, in 2014?
I want to say it was either week 16 or week 17. I think they were playing Minnesota. It was a December game.
Maybe week 6, because 17, that 2014 season, to get the first round bye, they played the Lions at home.
Okay.
So Rodgers being out for like the first series of the second half, Matt Flynn played.
Yep.
And it was the year the Packers and the Lions both made the playoffs. And the winner would have won the division. The loser would have gotten the wild card. That was 2014.
That's right. Yep, I do recall that. Yep.
By the way, Chris, I didn't know you went to Don Bosco.
I did.
I went to St. Joe's.
Did you really?
I did.
No way. How have we never spoken about that, man?
I don't know. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
All right. This has been great, guys. I just looked at the Packers schedule, and about 7 weeks from now, I think they play the Bears, and then I think they're on the bye week after that. So if things work out and we can all maybe get together in about 7 weeks, we can remember 3-3, and we'll see maybe where the Packers are in 7 weeks, and we can have maybe a nicer discussion about the team, or maybe it'll be who we're looking at in the Alabama Georgia game we want to draft next year.
Hey, listen, they may have played shitty on Sunday, but they're still my team. So go Pack, go.
That's right.
Right. That's right, John.
Yeah.
That's right. That's how we all feel. My team has been in the pits for a very, very long time, and we're 1-4, and but every week I sit there and watch Derek Carr blow up, and I cry, and everyone thinks I've broken every TV in my house multiple times. But none of it's true, Mike. None of it's true.
He just takes it out on the show. And my team hasn't won a Super Bowl since 1969. So there you go.
1969. Still rebuilding.
Joe Willie Namath.
Yeah. Broadway Joe, man.
Broadway Joe.
I think the Jets have had better quarterbacks in their history than the Bears.
That's not saying much.
Yeah.
Oh, come on, Kyle. Throw him a bone, man.
What is Joe Willie Namath's kryptonite? Is it Susie Colbert?
Yeah, that's what it was. That's what it was. It exactly was that moment on Monday Night Football.
Yeah, that was the best.
I don't think he was ever invited back after that.
No,
that was it. Last appearance.
Oh man, good old Joe. All right, guys, this has been great. I loved it. We were looking forward to this for a while, and appreciate you guys making time, especially you, Chris, on your birthday. Happy birthday!
Happy birthday, buddy!
Happy birthday, man!
Enjoy yourself, guys. Thank you, and we'll do this again.
Thanks, guys.
All right, thanks everybody.